Well, there's never a dull day so far as diplomacy and Trump are concerned there. Now, Greece has begun voting in its parliamentary elections, and this is, of course, the first election since Greece has emerged out of 3 successive international bailouts. The vote is being held 3 months earlier than originally planned, and this was done by the leftist Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras after he saw his support declining following the loss to the opposition New Democrat Party in May's European elections. Now, Greece has been under a left-wing rule for nearly about 5 years now, and early opinion polls indicate that the National Democratic Party is poised to take power, leading the ruling Syriza party by about 9 to 11 percentage points and winning as many as about 165 seats in a 300-member parliament. Now, the New Democrat Party candidate Kyriakos Mitsotakis conducted tours around the country and has also promised to bail out the country's failing economy.
Όσο αυξάνεται το ΑΕΠ, τόσο πρέπει να αυξάνονται οι μισθοί. Ο κατώτατος μισθός θα αυξάνεται με διπλάσιο ρυθμό της αύξησης του ΑΕΠ και σε 3 χρόνια πρέπει επιτέλους να φτάσει στα 730 ευρώ.
Now, even though Tsipras has his back to the wall, he has been exuding confidence of turning over the deficit in the actual polls.
Εμείς έχουμε σχέδιο για δίκαιη ανάπτυξη, που σημαίνει ανάπτυξη για όλους. Και έχουμε αποδείξει ότι το μπορούμε, γιατί πήραμε μια οικονομία διαλυμένη που μετρούσε 7 ολόκληρα χρόνια ύφεσης και σήμερα είμαστε στο 9ο συνεχόμενο τρίμηνο ανάπτυξης. Οι ξένες επενδύσεις είναι σε ρεκόρ δεκαετίας, οι εξαγωγές, η βιομηχανία, η οικοδομία, ο τουρισμός καταγράφουν εξαιρετικές επιδόσεις.
Now, Greece, remember, has been recovering from a devastating financial crisis, and the country has in fact suffered the worst of Eurozone's recession. The recessions in the wake of the 2008 financial crisis. In 2009, the government managed to raise almost about 299.7 million euros. Public spending was cut to deal with the crisis. The government also enacted about 12 rounds of tax increases from 2010 to 2016. Now, despite the measures, Greece required a bailout loan in the year 2010, in the year 2012, and also in the year 2015 from the International Monetary Fund, from the Eurogroup, and also the European Central Bank. In 2015, Greece became the first developed nation to default a loan repayment to the IMF. In the year 2018, a third bailout was approved when the European Union and Greece, and the third and the last bailout program expired on the 20th of August in 2018. Greece now owes roughly about 290 billion euros to the European Union and to the IMF. All right, let's now shift our attention to some other stories now, where the notorious Mexican drug lord Joaquin El Chapo Guzman is in prison, but the United States is not done with him, not just yet. The U.S. authorities have said that they are actually seeking a court order requiring El Chapo to forfeit as much as about $12.7 billion. This follows El Chapo's conviction for racketeering and drug trafficking crimes earlier in the year. So how did the U.S. authorities come to the figure of $12.7 billion? Now, the sum represents the total amount of cocaine, marijuana and heroin that a jury had found Guzman to have trafficked. Multiplied by the average prices of those drugs, it was not immediately clear as to what assets, if any, that the United States could seize to satisfy this judgment. Now, earlier in the year, on the 12th of February, Guzman was convicted on all 10 counts that he faced. El Chapo now faces life in prison at his scheduled 17th of July sentencing. Now, Guzman made a name for himself in the 1980s by building cross-border tunnels that allowed him to move cocaine from Mexico into the United States faster than anyone else. Now, he spent much of his career on the run, moving from one hideout to another in the mountains of Sinaloa, guarded by a private army. He's even managed to escape from the maximum security Mexican prisons. Now, El Chapo was finally captured in January 2016 and extradited to the United States to face trial. The Florida-based billionaire and sex offender Jeffrey Epstein has been arrested in New York on sex trafficking charges. The charges involved allegations dating back to the early 2000s. The wealthy hedge fund manager, who was once friends with former President Bill Clinton, Great Britain's Prince Andrew, and also President Donald Trump, has been taken into federal custody. Now, Epstein is to appear in the Manhattan Federal Court in New York on Monday. The arrest comes about 12 years after the 66-year-old financier was accused of allegedly molesting dozens of underage girls in Florida. Now, Epstein received a lenient plea deal after being accused of paying girls for sexual massages in Florida. The 66-year-old financier was sentenced to 13 months in prison and required to settle with his then teenage victims and register as a sex offender.